Cautionary tale, my experience with Purse Funeral Home in Tecumseh. Losing a loved one is never easy, and dealing with the aftermath often brings additional challenges that we don't expect. In my family's case, the loss of our wife, mother, and grandmother on Christmas Eve led us down a difficult path with Purse Funeral Home in Tecumseh. While rumors about this funeral home may seem exaggerated to some, I assure you the majority of what is said is true. I am sharing this in hopes that it saves other families from the heartache we went through. In 2012, my parents purchased a direct cremation pre-planning package from Purse Funeral Home for $800. At the time, this seemed like a smart decision based on prices from 2017 on Facebook. It looked like their prices hadn't changed much. Unfortunately, I was wrong. What followed was a shocking experience that left me devastated, not just by the loss of my mother, but by the cruel treatment we endured. When my mother suddenly passed away on Christmas Eve, the funeral home arrived to remove her from our home and prepare her for cremation. I specifically requested that my mom not be cremated until I could fly in from Orlando to say my final goodbye. My sister ensured this would happen, but when it came time to handle my mom's body, things took an unexpected turn. Without warning, the price of their services skyrocketed by a staggering $3,000 despite the $800 prepaid. The owner claimed that his prices had increased and that the contract my mother signed 12 years ago no longer applied. This was a painful realization, especially as we tried to work out a solution the day of her death. My sister and Barry argued about this contract. They settled on $500, and I could see my mom the next day at 2 p.m. on Christmas Day. My father and I went to say goodbye to my mother, but we were stymied by Barry Purse. Very first, he refused to let us see her, stating that his prices had changed. His attitude was dismissive and rude, and he claimed he didn't have to honor the contract despite my assistance and my sister's previous agreement on a $500 fee for holding my mom. He became agitated, told me to leave, and even threatened to call the police. I told him at the time I was not leaving and that I wanted to settle our bill of $500 and say goodbye as it was agreed on. When the police arrived, they informed me off the record that Purse was notorious for causing problems, and it was in our best interest to remove my mom. After a tense exchange, I very reluctantly agreed to transfer my mother's remains to another funeral home. However, he denied having made any agreement, even when the police officer confirmed it. The most heartbreaking part of the entire ordeal was being denied the chance to say goodbye to my mom, despite the officer's request to allow me the final moment of closure. Barry refused. His cold, calculating attitude only deepened the pain I was already feeling. What should have been a time of grief and reflection turned into a battle for basic decency and compassion. My father thought he and Barry were friends due to the weekly conversations they shared at Jerry's Market. He was told by Barry they weren't friends, and that he would not be honoring my dad's contract when it's needed to say my dad was disappointed is an understatement, and I reminded my dad that he didn't need friends like that. This man is soulless. Eventually, we moved my mother to another funeral home that treated our family with dignity and compassion. It was clear that Purse Funeral Home was motivated by greed and profit, not care for the families they were supposed to serve. To anyone reading this, if your loved one is pre-planned with Purse Funeral Home, know that you can transfer your pre-plan to another funeral home without their permission. You are not legally bound to use Purse because they manage the contract. This experience was a painful reminder that not all businesses have your best interest at heart, especially in times of emotional vulnerability. I share my story with the hope that others avoid the same heartbreaking experience. Please, if you have a loved one with a pre-plan at Purse Funeral Home Tecumseh, consider other options and make sure you're dealing with a funeral home that genuinely cares. If you're going through something similar, know that you deserve respect and compassion during your time of loss. Don't settle for anything less. If you've had a similar experience or have any advice, I encourage you to leave a comment or contact me directly. Let's help each other through difficult times and ensure no one else has to endure what my family went through.